Hi, this is Patricia Ravitz. I'm the chair of CAMP's 2018 annual conference, and I'm here today with George Faller, who is going to be presenting on EFT. And we're going to find out a lot more about what that is and some of the things that our members can expect in your conference. But first, you have such an interesting background, really pretty unique. I know that you were a New York City firefighter for 21 years. And somehow you made it over into being a psychotherapist. And I would love to know more about that journey.
All right, well, welcome. Thank you for having me. I grew up in a blue-collar town in New York City called College Point, and they said the only way out of College Point was the PD, police department, FD, fire department, or OD, overdose. So I decided to go the police department route at 21 years old, and 3 years later, I transferred to the fire department. So the town I grew up in, I never even heard of a therapist. I never thought I'd grow up to be a therapist. I just, had a nice adrenaline rush and wanted to have some fun. But I was always interested in what made relationships work. And at 21 years old, as a police officer, I'd respond to these crazy disputes and people were fighting. And I was like, why are they fighting? And anything I would try to get them to listen and help never really worked. So when I went to the fire department, I actually was always interested in self-help books and stuff. And that got me going in a direction of psychology. But I really started to see great examples. In the town I grew up with, most people are unhappily married. Half of marriages were ending in divorce. I always said, you know what, that's never going to happen to me. I'm not going to get married. Then I met my wife, and sure enough, I went down the aisle. And I really learned so much in the firehouse on what makes relationships work. You know, if you boil it down, the secret of any relationship is based on the quality of engagement. And in a firehouse, there's high levels of engagement. There's a lot of trust. There's a lot of camaraderie. People that really, want to be with each other. And I was going down that road, and I decided to go back to school and look into this psychology stuff. I didn't want any of the guys in the firehouse to know. And sure enough, I came in one day. I thought I had kept it secret for months. And my locker was spray painted with flowers, and they nicknamed me Cupid. So it was pretty embarrassing. I never thought I'd ever work with firefighters. And then 9/11 happened. And 9/11 in New York City Fire Department lost 343 firefighters. So to date, that's the largest loss of emergency personnel ever in the history of the world at one moment. So it was in that atmosphere that I was doing critical incident stress debriefings besides working at Ground Zero. And, there was certainly all the things we'd expect after disaster: alcoholism, addictions, post-traumatic stress disorder, but also marital discord. And there were hundreds and hundreds of therapists wanting to see the firefighters individually, but nobody wanted to see the couples. And at that point, I was going back to school to be a couples therapist. And I was saying to myself, well, nobody wants to see these couples. I have to be better than nobody at all. I don't really want to see firefighters, but nobody was stepping up to see firefighters. So it was in that moment of need that I kind of reluctantly raised my hand, and the person was like, George, you're willing to see him? Great. Immediately on my days off, I was getting 10 couples a day. And I really didn't know what I was doing. So it was in the spirit of that I reached out to Sue Johnson for some help. And she said, certainly, I'll send you some books, but better yet, I'll fly out and I'll train you personally. So during those first 6 months, I had Sue Johnson and Harville Hendricks and John Gottman. I thought all new therapists started this way, with all this, great training. And it was such an exciting, but it's really informed the way I've done therapy. There's so many beautiful ways in just trying to find these best ways to really help people.
Yeah, that's a really unique story about how you ended up in the field. And I was also really curious, and maybe in part you answered this, how you ended up with emotionally focused therapy. Why did you want to be focused on feelings?
Well, actually, it's a combination of, the most important thing is after 9/11, I followed the rules I was taught to do, which is not really talk about what I was seeing or what I was doing. And my wife really tried to support me and give me space and take care of all of her worries on her own. And we were trying to love each other so much, and yet we were drifting further and further apart. So emotionally focused therapy was a way for me to really experience the value of going to these more vulnerable parts of myself and letting my wife in, and vice versa. So it as a firefighter, we believe in things that are tactics that are proven to work. So many people would give me advice and different things, and nothing was really working. But it was actually the experience of kind of meeting my wife in a new way that created a security in our relationship that we never had. So I guess why I went to emotionally focused therapy is because it proved itself in my own relationship.
Yes. My brother is a firefighter, and I've been around some firefighters, and
Right.
it seems like a culture that isn't very big on expressing emotion. And I wonder what kind of special challenges you found both in working with individual firefighters and also in the couples work that you were doing.
Sure. Well, if I'm crawling into a fire, I do not want the firefighter next to me expressing their vulnerabilities and their emotions. Say, you know what, George, I'm getting a little nervous. It's feeling a little hot. I mean, this ability to turn off your feelings and cognitively focus on a task at hand is incredibly adaptive and very necessary. And we don't want to change that, but it's all about flexibility. If you're going to put up walls and tune out your emotional signals, it's hard when you come home to kind of lower those walls. And then it creates all this distance that really starts to interfere with relationships. So it's all about honoring the good reasons they avoid and they shut down, but then getting them to be curious about, is there a way of doing it differently when it would be beneficial to them for doing it differently? So I think it's all about how you try to approach these firefighters. My experience, I do a lot of work with the military. We're all these attachment needs to be in relationship is how we're made. So as much as we tune out these channels, they're always there. I worked with a Navy SEAL who said, George, I want to let you know, some people say they don't do emotions. I want to let you know I don't have any emotions. And I was like, all right, well, that's great. And that's how are you able to do that? And we're just hanging out and chatting and doing our thing. And then I tell him, and he came from a horrific family of origin, never saw secure attachment. He had addictions. There was violence in the affairs. You name it. The marriage had everything. This guy did not know how to do emotions. And I asked him, hey, can you tell me a favor? He started to talk about his daughter. And all of a sudden, something shifted in him. And he said, oh, my daughter, she's the most special thing in my life. At night, I sit down next to her. I rub her hair. I read her a story about knights and dragons, and I tell her I'm her knight and I'll always protect her. And I give her a kiss and she falls asleep. How does this man know how to do that? He perfectly emotionally engages with his daughter. So I think it's really trying to empower therapists. How do they learn to harness and find this emotion? It's impossible. We're as capable of stopping emotion as we are stopping ourselves from sneezing. It's there. We just got to know how to handle it.
I don't know a lot about emotionally focused therapy as a kind of theoretical approach. I wonder if you could give our members a little highlight of some of the things that they'll be learning and how you work in that kind of approach.
Sure, absolutely. Emotionally focused therapy is a short-term model that's really focusing on getting to the heart of issues instead of just treating the symptoms. So really we're focusing on the state of the emotional bond between two people. Most therapists are focusing on insight and fixing all the content and trying to get people to listen and negotiate and make deals with each other. But when you're emotionally triggered, it's really hard to do that. So, Yankees just opened up the season yesterday with a victory. And if I want to go tonight to a Yankee game and me and my wife are in a great place, she says, of course, honey, you work so hard, go to a Yankee game. Me and my wife are in a bad place. She goes, again, you're working, you're never around. Now you're going to go out again. It's not about the Yankee game. It's really about the state of our relationship. So the Irish have a good saying, everybody focuses on the drinking and not the thirst. Really what EFT is trying to do is trying to get to the thirst. What's the real motivation emotionally behind so many of these behaviors that don't make sense? When people get angry or they don't wake up wanting to get angry or wanting to walk away, it's really defensive strategies. So what we're really trying to do is understand these repetitive patterns that are really predictable within couples. Really, these defenses are just ways of managing the pain of disconnection. But most couples therapists are trying to focus on getting people to listen differently when it's not, their ears work fine. It's just these emotions that really get in the way of it.
Yes. Well, I couldn't agree more. And I know in the work I do, you hear this expression, if you feel it, you heal it. And that, it's trying to get people out of their heads and into their bodies, and then making that connection from heart to heart. And it sounds like that's exactly the work that you're doing.
Exactly. We're trying to do both. I like to call it Cocoa, like Cocoa Puffs. We're trying to co-create meaning. Insight's important, but it's only going to get you so far, right? We're also trying to co-regulate emotion, which is equally important. And I think the theory of change, I would ask any therapist, if they're watching this or thinking about going to this training, to ask themselves, what is your theory of change? I think every client should start their first session by asking the therapist, how are you going to help me? What is your theory of change? We should be experts. That's how we keep our focus. The theory of change in EFT is, yes, it's great to identify negative cycles, but what's more important is you have to replace them with positive cycles. You're trying to create secure attachment. That's what's going to allow a couple to handle the stresses that are inevitable in everyday life. So unlike our politicians who just want to point out what's not working, let's replace it with something that is, and that's what's going to be lasting.
Well, I'm really excited about your workshop. I'm looking forward to taking it. And I just wonder, is there anything else that you want to let our members know that are thinking about coming and thinking, boy, does this really fit with what I do?
Well, I'm a little biased. I don't think there's a person on this planet that this isn't helpful to really understand their emotions. Emotions are just signals from your body saying, pay attention, something's, happening for better or worse. But just to give you a quick example, if you're trying to match emotion, the stance of the therapist is really important here. Like if you start this conversation off and you're like, George, I can't wait to go. I'm so excited. You're all this good energy. And I start going, well, Pat, that's nice. Can you tell me more about what you're happy about? Oh, that's really interesting. Our energy is so low and it's so far away from the energy of our clients, they won't be able to join us. I do so much supervision and clients start off all angry. I can't believe my wife did it again. This is ridiculous. Last time she agreed she wasn't, she did it again. And a therapist is like, wow, let's slow down. That must make you feel so sad when she does that. And it's just like you sit there and you can see that they're so far away from each other. So really in emotionally focused therapy, we're trying to walk in people's shoes and kind of let them feel like they're not alone in these emotions and literally to co-regulate it. So I think in this workshop, we will actually do, it's not just only getting this information, which is great, but I think people will experientially get a lot of practice in both the role of the client and as a therapist. And if it works in your own life, you should do more of it. So many people who come to this training, come in for a couple extra tools to help their clients, and they start to recognize, holy cow, I use this with my own marriage, with my own kids. So good stuff.
Yeah, well said. It sounds like really good stuff. I'm excited. I know you're coming from across the country to be with us and share all of this wisdom and information. So I really look forward to meeting you. I know our members are excited.
Awesome. Me too. Very much looking forward to it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, George.
All right. Blessings. Great.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.